Thank you, Sandra Jane, and good afternoon, everyone. It's lovely to be invited back. What I'd like to chat with you about today is covered in the outline slide. So if we look at that first, just to make sure we're clear why we're here today. I thought it would be helpful to start with some background information to the NQ changes, because that's important because it sets in a context the information that you're going to hear throughout the rest of this webinar. We'll then highlight to you what the actual changes are for 2017-18. We'll highlight to you as well what information and documentation is available for you to help you prepare for course and unit assessment in National Qualifications, along with support that you can also tap into. And then the last 4 bullets there, we will have a chat through about them because there are changes in terms of presentations of learners for this year. There's a change to Grade D. RPA, or Recognising Positive Achievement, has changed slightly as well. And there's also lots of conversations going on at a national level about what and how National 4 should look like for candidates over the coming few years. So lots to chat through this afternoon. So let's get going then. If we start with the background to the National Qualification changes, I think that's really helpful because it explains why the situation that you're now facing in terms of your lecturing preparation and assessment is happening. The ministerial group, known as the Assessment and National Qualifications Group, was established in January 2016 and is currently chaired by the Deputy First Minister, John Swinney. Now, I'd like to read out to you what the purpose of that group is. This group was initially set up to consider and make recommendations on the policy framework within which national qualifications are developed and operate, and on assessment policy and practice from age 3 to 18 and the best means of supporting improvements. Now, this group was set up back in January 2016 because SQA had already started to undertake some research on how the new national qualifications were being received, both by lecturing staff and candidates. And we had undertaken some desk-based research through our qualification design teams, and we'd also conducted some fieldwork visits across schools and colleges between December 15, January 16, and then again December 16, January 17. And as a result of those visits and research, we published an action plan in May 2016, together with subject review reports. And that highlighted that for the purposes of reassessment, we introduced 3 new unit assessment approaches. We also considered rationalisation of documentation for lecturing and teaching staff. There was too many documents that you had to refer to understand what you needed to do. And what else we could do in terms of quality assuring by reducing the burden on teachers and lecturing staff for that too. So we suspended the random sampling approach for units. So we were already starting to get some feedback on how national qualifications were working, and we'd started to take some action on that when in September 2016 there was an announcement made by Deputy First Minister John Swinney, and the purpose of that announcement was to outline further action to reduce workload for teachers and lecturers from session 17-18 onwards. And again, this was to the backdrop of industrial action at that time. And again, after his first announcement, discussions continued at ANQ, and then there was a further announcement made in March 2017. And this is where he took further his announcement he made in September, and he started to provide clarity around what it meant about the removal of unit assessments from national qualifications, the importance then of well-informed and accurate presentation decisions, the extension of Grade D as the mechanism for recognising positive achievement, and the plans to review assessment of the National 4 qualification. Now, obviously, if there's anything that you're hearing from me today that you would want to challenge or ask about, um, both Colleges Scotland and Further and Higher Education representatives are members of the ANQ group. So you should have a channel within your centre to feedback any concerns from anything that's shared with you today. I'm hoping that what I'm telling you isn't completely new. I'm sure you will have heard about some of it, hence why you're tuning in today to help you prepare for next session. But I wanted to highlight that to you because the ANQ group is still meeting and still discussing changes that will occur over the next few years in terms of national qualifications. As I mentioned, John Swinney in September 2016 made the announcement that the mandatory unit content within a national qualification course was to be removed. So what that means is now that there are no longer units contained within the national qualification course. Those units, though, that have been removed have been rebadged as SCQF Level 5 units and will be available as freestanding units for any candidate during session 2017 and 18. The planned change here in terms of removal of national units will occur for National 5 for session 17-18, higher in session 18-19 and advanced higher in session 19-20. The removal of mandatory unit assessment reflects proposals from some teachers and lecture groups who felt that the cumulative to undertake 3 unit assessments, course assignments, prelims, and a final exam for each course was too great. This was especially the case in the context of one-year courses, which was a common approach and was detracting from providing sufficient time for high-quality learning and teaching. So to sum up, in the words of the Deputy First Minister, this was why units were removed as mandatory content. So what does that mean then for unit, or what does that mean then for course assessment in terms of national qualifications? So what are the changes there? Mandatory unit assessments have been removed from the courses. We know now that these units will remain available as freestanding units at SCQF Level 5. However, the units will no longer form part of the National 5 course. The decision to retain units as freestanding qualifications is intended to support flexibility in meeting the different needs of individual learners. Now, as a result of having to remove the mandatory unit assessments, SQA had to clarify the aims, rationale and content of the course. Course assessments have been strengthened to ensure they assess the full content of each course following the removal of units. And what that meant was, folks, that we had various options open to us in terms of beefing up the course assessment for National 5. And those options included extension of the existing question paper, extension of the existing item of coursework, a new question paper, or a new item of coursework. So depending on your subject, I'm sure you'll already have been onto your subject-specific web page on the SQA Open website. You will have seen by the documentation that's been recently published what option SQA chose for your particular subject. And for some subject, it has been one of these 4 options. For other subject, it has been 2 or 3, because it was important that when we removed the mandatory unit assessment, we retained the National 5 course at the appropriate SCQF Level 5 points and level. So, what we'd like to do then now is to do the first poll of today, just to see if you've been understanding what I've been saying to you. So we'll let you do that right now. Okay, we're going to move on to poll 2 now. And then finally poll 3 for now. Well done, folks. That was 100% result. Well done. No reassessment needed there. Okay, let's move on then and chat about what support is available to you and when these changes will occur. As you know, at the end of January this year, we produced high-level information about the changes to the National 5 course assessment for each subject, and that gave you an indication of what one of the 4 options that we were going to select for your subject. I think it's important for me to emphasise at this point that there has been no change to the course aim, rationale or content, apart from in subjects biology and computing science. Every other national qualification subject has stayed the same. The difference is in the course assessment now. And the detail of that course assessment was produced at the end of April into the first week of May this year, and that gave you a revised mandatory course document. And again, that was keeping in line with what her field research had indicated, that there was too many documents. So we rationalised what was the previous course assessment specification and the course specification into one mandatory course document. And that, in a sense, will become your Bible for delivery for session 2017-18. And between end of May and to September this year, we're going to produce some support materials for you. And that will take the form of specimen question papers where appropriate, and also further course support notes to help you with planning your lecturing and also helping your candidate towards that assessment. To help you be clear about all of that, SQA is running a webinar programme which is starting at the moment. You can access that via the Understanding Standards web link on our open web page. They are bookable. However, we're recording each webinar, so if you can't get on for that particular date or are not available, you can access them at a date and time that are suitable for you. Very similar to the ones that we're doing with CDN. We're also going to produce some audio presentations. Those are for those subjects that there was very little change to them. So if you don't necessarily see a webinar for your subject, there should be an audio presentation instead. And again, they will be available for you to book on and access at a time that suits you. We're also planning again this year between November 17 and January 18 to run our Understanding Standards events, and that will be at all levels from National 3 to Advanced Higher. As always, there is marking opportunities available. So again, if you are a lecturer and you are assessing National 5 and you would like to be involved in the marking of the new course assessments for sessions 17 and 18, please apply on our appointee management webpage on our open website. And also important to highlight here, even though the unit assessments are gone as mandatory content, because they are still available as freestanding units, you can still use any SQA unit assessment support pack on our secure site to help with assessing your candidates for unit assessment. I've included a screen dump from our web page, and this is really the English homepage for NQ. So if you were going to www.sqa.org.uk, you typed in the search bar NQ subjects, this would take you to the list of NQ subjects, and then you would click on the subject that was relevant for you. Now, for National 5, where you want to click on is the little tab that says 2017-18. And in there you'll get your new course specification, which as I referred to as your new Bible for session 17-18. And this is also where we'll add on any further support material that I alluded to earlier that should be available by September 17. over the page I have included a sample contents page for the new course specification. And you can see there under course content, we're stating quite clearly what the skills, knowledge and learning is that your candidate needs to know about to help them prepare for the course assessment. And I'm highlighting that to you because it will be from the skills, knowledge and understanding that's listed there is what we will sample for in the revised question paper. So in other words, there should be no surprises for your candidate in terms of course assessment. That was a criticism previously of the National Qualifications, that sometimes where we had sampled from, it wasn't obvious where that topic had came from. But now you should be crystal clear. If you've covered everything contained within the revised course specification under skills, knowledge and understanding, you should be confident that your candidate is well prepared for the course assessment. Obviously, with the national courses at National 5 changing, in other words, the units being removed as mandatory content and the course assessment being beefed up, this may mean a slightly different approach in terms of the choices that you make for your learners, in terms of what you want to enter them for. So in other words, in session 17-18, you will need to decide whether a learner is presented for either a National 5 course award or freestanding SCQF level 5 units. And if you think about that, that makes sense because the units are no longer in the National 5 course. So you have the option to go for the learner to go down the route of a National 5 course only, or to choose the SCQF level 5 units. Some learners might also be presented for a number of full courses in some subjects, and additionally for a number of freestanding units in different subjects. So again, you might decide to do a National 5 course in biology, but add on some additional freestanding units in different subjects at the same level that would complement that biology course content. This is an interesting one, not particularly new for colleges, I don't think. Candidates tend to stay with you for longer than a year anyway, but for schools this will be a particular challenge. Some learners may be presented for courses over 2 years. So again, you might decide with your learner that you're going to take longer to get them through that national qualification course and not having to try and do it within 9-10 months of the academic session that they're with you. And as always, you have to give an indication of candidate presentation. In other words, what grade do you think your candidate is going to achieve? And you do that through the normal way by providing estimates to your data people within your college. That's quite a lot to take in at the moment, folks, and a little bit to think about. So I'm going to give you another poll here just to help you consolidate that, and then we'll move on. Well done, that's absolutely right, spot on. Candidates can only be entered for courses or units. I mentioned to you earlier in this presentation we were going to talk about recognising positive achievement. What you may know as fallback, where a candidate who didn't achieve a National 5 could be awarded a National 4 course. Now, because we took the mandatory unit content out of the national courses, it means that for RPA, it's been brought back for session 17-18, but on an interim basis. And what that means is now, in terms of estimating your candidate, we've extended grade D to pick up those candidates who might actually achieve a qualification at the level they were entered for. So in other words, folks, if you're estimating your candidate now to achieve either an A, B, C or D grade has been extended from 45 to 49%, now to 40 to 49%. So bear that in mind when you're making a decision about your candidate as to whether could they achieve a grade D at National 5, how because if they're estimated between a 40 and 49%, or if you're estimating them at 39% and below, then they're the candidates that are eligible now for RPA. So what we're going to do now is poll 5. Well done, folks. It is actually D, all of the above. We deliberately made that change to grade D because it's a mechanism to allow RPA. It brings the grading for grade D in lines with grades A to C, and also, most importantly, it allows a candidate to achieve a course at the level they were entered for. Remember, SQA recognises grade D as an achievement in its own right, and it carries certain SCQF level points. Let's just explore RPA a little bit further, and I want to give you time to read the announcement that came from the Deputy First Minister in March 17. Now, what this is stating very clearly, folks, is that RPA should be used in a limited number of exceptional circumstances. So only where you and your curriculum manager or your management team within the college feel that it's appropriate for a particular candidate to get RPA, would you then enter the candidate for the National 5 course and the SCQF Level 5 freestanding units, along with their added value unit at National 4. So there's an expectation at a national level that the number of candidates achieving National 4 through RPA will reduce. And that was why Grade D was extended, because it allows them to achieve a qualification at the level they were entered for if you enter them for a National 5 course. And only where a candidate you think is at risk of achieving 39% or below would you take them down the RPA route. At the coordinator conferences, this was emphasised at the school coordinator conferences, and we're running a college coordinator conference on the 24th of August this year. RPA requirements now are quite different for session 17-18. You need to be confident that your candidate is likely to achieve less than 40% in the final exam. So in other words, for the course assessment for National 5, you're looking at them achieving a band 8 or 9. If you think that's the case, you can then present for both units and courses at National 5, and you should be able to do that up until the end of June 2018. And again, it's an interim measure only. The First Minister has announced this approach to RPA to be around for as long as any decision is made for National 4. So at the moment, interim RPA is around for session 17-18 and will confirm in due course if it will remain for session 18-19. What we'd like to do now is give you another poll just to see if what I'm saying is making any sense to you whatsoever. Well done, folks. That's exactly it. So again, you need to bear that in mind when you're working with your candidates and taking them through the teaching and learning of your course. What assessment direction are they travelling in? Are they travelling towards that course assessment? Or are they travelling towards unit assessment? Or do you have some candidates where RPA is the right route for them? Again, this was announced at the school coordinator conferences and will be again for the College Coordinator Conference in August this year, that current arrangements for automatic RPA introduced in 2014 will continue for Certification Day 2018. So what that really means is, folks, if you have identified a candidate who is eligible for RPA, in other words, you've estimated them at band 8 or 9, which is 39% or below, you have entered them for the National 5 course, you've entered them for the 3 SCQF Level 5 units, and the added value unit at National 4 for your subject. You let them go ahead and attempt the course assessment, and they achieve a band 8 or 9, we will automatically certificate a National 4 course achievement for Certification Day, August 2018. However, if you decide that you're not going to let the candidate go forward for the external assessment, but you still think they deserve a National 4 course award, you can do it post August 2018 using our school enter and result forms that are on our website. And again, your MIS and data people will be able to keep you right there. So there's no reason why your candidate can't achieve something in terms of national qualifications for Certification Day 2018. Finally, and this is really quite important too, because for many candidates, particularly those that come to college, the route to college is through the achievement of National 4, along with some SCQF Level 5 units. Now, current discussions ANQ include the possibility of some form of externality and differentiation at National 4. And all that means, folks, is the possibility of some form of external assessment at National 4 and some form of grading. Now, grading would be very important, and certainly when we did the field work research, that was something that candidates felt quite strongly about. They would like to have a grade A, B or C, the same as a friend who's doing a National 5. One of the things we need to give very careful consideration, and certainly we are feeding back strongly to ANQ, is whether National 4 should have an external assessment. If you remember why National 4 was developed in the first place, and in terms of the type of assessment that was introduced to that, which is internal assessment, it's because candidates at that level traditionally do not perform well in external assessment. So we need to think very carefully there about whether we tag any external assessment onto National 4. But I do think grading would be something that would be welcomed. And as I say, that's really important because a lot of your candidates, not always, but a lot of them, come to college having experienced National 4 and units at a higher level, and most importantly, that process of internal assessment. They're familiar with that, and we certainly wouldn't want to lose that journey for them. And finally, let's chat a little bit about what it means for quality assurance in session 17-18. And what I've got up there in the slide, folks, is all the options that are open to you in terms of national qualifications that you could be teaching and lecturing and assessing your candidates towards during session 17-18. So if we start at the top, and if we take the SCQF Level 5 units, now remember those are the units that were mandatory content and have been removed from the National Qualification course. They've simply been rebadged as SCQF Level 5 units. Now if you enter a candidate for one of those units, it means that you could be selected for verification. And you could be selected for verification during round 1, which traditionally happens round about January, February time. And we've also reintroduced the random sampling for the SCQF Level 5 units, which means you could also be selected in round 2 for those particular units. And if you think about that, folks, logically, it's to ensure we can still quality assure for those candidates that you've identified as RPA. So let's say you identify a candidate March, April time that you don't think is going to perform well in the external assessment and you want to put RPE in for them, it may mean at that stage in the session you're entering SCQF level 5 units. And we would like to make sure that we can quality assure them, if appropriate, at that time. National 5 courses, well, there's no units in them now, so there would be no round 1 selection. However, there's still internally assessed course components. You know, the sort of things like assignments, etc. So again, anything where you're marking those and sending them off to us for verification, you could be selected for that aspect in round 2, which normally occurs between March and May of any given session. Now for higher and advanced higher, if you're offering those at your college for your subject, it's very much business as usual. So it's units for round 1 for higher and advanced higher, and IACAs, an added value unit at National 4, as well there. So again, depending on what journey your candidate is taking, you could find yourself being selected for SCQF level 5 units, IACAs at National 5, and possibly some units or IACAs at higher. And we've got one little last poll for you, I think, folks. Yep, well done. That's exactly correct. So again, we've got a question and answer session coming up, which we'll move to just shortly. But if you reflect on what I've shared with you today and you have any particular questions about your subject, please contact your local liaison manager. Every college in Scotland has a liaison manager who is there to support you in terms of anything to do with national qualifications. There's my email address and my mobile number, so even if you want to come to me first, I can then forward that on to the relevant liaison manager for you. And again, you can also keep up to date with changes as they come on, both for National 5, Member Higher in session 18-19 and Advanced Higher 19-20 by going to our open website and selecting NQ changes. That will keep you up to speed with everything that you need to know. And that's all from me at the moment. I'll hand back over to Elma.